something horrible had happened. And then when he told me that he was dead, it was like waking up from a nightmare and hoping to wake up from a nightmare and saying, this is a joke. And I broke down and I couldn't believe it.
Elvis Presley's ghost appeared to a farmer the very day he died. This spine-chilling encounter was only the beginning of countless eerie stories that have kept fans in suspense for decades. From Graceland to Vegas, ordinary people and celebrities alike claim to have felt his lingering presence, heard his songs in empty rooms, or even spotted his unmistakable figure watching from afar. Tune in as we unravel the creepiest, most unforgettable ghost stories that make you wonder. Could the King of Rock still be watching from beyond? Locals tell of Elvis's unseen visits. The legend of Elvis Presley lives on in ways stranger than fiction. One quiet afternoon, a farmer was working in his fields near Graceland when he noticed a figure approaching. It wasn't the usual glimpse of the king driving past, waving from a car. No, this time he was on foot, strolling quietly, his steps deliberate, his gaze calm. The farmer watched in awe as he stopped before him, nodding ever so slightly. He murmured a few soft words that felt like a farewell. Then with a final look, he turned and walked away, leaving the farmer standing, a strange feeling stirring in his heart. It was as though he'd witnessed a moment that would linger forever, an encounter too surreal to grasp. Moments later, a chill ran through him. A message was coming that would change everything he thought he'd seen. The farmer tried to brush it off, thinking the king was just off on one of his adventures. But then, something unsettling happened. Only minutes after, his wife rushed to him, her face drained of color. She delivered news that struck him to the core. The king of rock and roll had been pronounced dead earlier that very day. A chill ran through him as he scanned the empty field. The figure, or whatever he had seen, was gone, leaving only a profound silence in his wake. In the days that followed, the memory haunted the farmer. The encounter weighed on him, but soon he realized he wasn't the only one. People around Graceland began whispering of their own bizarre experiences. One after another, neighbors and strangers alike spoke of seeing him, glimpsing his familiar silhouette in places where he could not possibly be. The stories grew stranger by the day. A few years later, a group of tourists visiting Graceland, expecting a traditional tour of the king's lavish mansion, found something far more spine-chilling. As they roamed the halls, several claimed to see a man who looked uncannily like him. He had the unmistakable jumpsuit, the iconic sideburns, the slick, styled hair. He even hummed a line from one of his own songs, his voice eerily familiar. Excited and confused, the tourists scrambled to tell their tour guide about the incredible impersonator. But the guide gave them a look of bewilderment. Graceland did not hire impersonators, and no one like that was there. A search of the mansion turned up nothing, yet the whispers only grew louder. Then there was Annette, who had unknowingly moved into an old Presley apartment in Memphis. It didn't take long for her to notice oddities. Chilly spots that seemed to drift with her, doors that creaked open without explanation, small objects vanishing and reappearing in unexpected places. Annette couldn't shake the feeling she wasn't alone, that perhaps he himself lingered. One quiet night as she sat in her living room, the faint sound of piano music reached her ears. The tune was unmistakable, "Can't Help Falling in Love." Annette rushed to the piano, but the room fell silent as she entered. The keys were still, yet she felt a strange presence, as if the king had been there, playing his heart out in the room where his memory still lingered. But perhaps the most chilling of tales belonged to Mary Jenkins Langston, his longtime cook and confidant. After his passing, Mary began experiencing things that sent shivers down her spine. She saw reflections of him in mirrors, caught his silhouette behind her as she went about her daily routines. At first, she dismissed them as tricks of her imagination, but then came the late-night knocks. They echoed down the hallway, always on her bathroom door, always when she was alone, as if he was still there, keeping an eye on her. Mary could almost hear his laughter from the days they spent together, her cooking filling the house with the comforting smells he loved. And one day, as she rested in her chair, she felt a familiar, gentle tug on her toes, a playful gesture he used to wake her with. It startled her, but she couldn't help but smile, feeling as though he was there, unwilling to fade from the world he cherished. Beyond Graceland, stories of his spirits surfaced across the country. In Las Vegas, a city forever tied to his legacy, rumors flew of sightings. Not in some rundown tribute bar, but on the grand stages where he once performed. Several performers swore they saw a man who looked exactly like him in the wings during their shows, watching as if ensuring the show went on. One young singer named Danny, preparing for his debut, spotted a figure in the shadows wearing a glittering jumpsuit and giving him an encouraging nod. Only after he stepped onto the stage did he realize the figure had looked exactly like the king. When he asked around, the staff insisted no one else was backstage. The young performer was left pondering if the king himself had somehow returned to share a final moment of inspiration. As time went on, stories continued to emerge, each more mysterious than the last. Bartenders claim that, late at night, a man with his mannerisms ordered a peanut butter and banana sandwich, chatting about fame and the cost of a legendary life. When the bartender looked away, he found only an empty stool and an untouched sandwich. And then there was Emily, a young girl visiting Graceland with her family, who wandered off after hearing a melody. Drawn by the sound of humming, she found herself in a room where a man at the piano smiled and played a few notes for her. When her mother called her back, Emily told her about the man at the piano, convinced it was him, but her parents assured her no one else was there. These tales of fleeting encounters kept his spirit alive, each one adding to the mystery of his legend. People debated the sightings. Some called it wishful thinking. Others believed in a deeper connection to the king. And then there were those moments, so fleeting yet so powerful, when a shadow seemed to linger too long, a familiar tune drifted unexpectedly, or a room filled with an unexplainable, electrifying presence. In these moments, people wondered if the king was truly gone, or if some piece of him remained, woven into the places he once graced with his talent, his charm, his unforgettable spirit. His music, charisma, and unmatched persona left an indelible mark on the world, a legacy that time itself couldn't quite erase. And perhaps, just perhaps, that mark was so powerful that it lingers on, as if he's still with us, offering a glimpse of his magic to those who need it most. But Elvis's presence wasn't just at Graceland. In Las Vegas, a friend would soon have a chilling encounter. Wayne Newton's unforgettable encounter with Elvis's spirit. In the dazzling city of Las Vegas, a place where the king of rock and roll once held the spotlight, eerie tales have kept his memory alive in mysterious ways. One of these tales centers on Wayne Newton, a close friend of the king and a legendary performer in his own right. It was the late 1970s, and Newton was performing at the International Hotel, now called the Westgate, where he had once captivated audiences night after night. Newton faced the daunting task of performing on the same iconic stage, and to honor his friend, he decided to dedicate a song to him. As Newton began to sing, the entire theater went pitch black, as if something or someone had intervened. Only one spotlight remained, shining directly on him. The audience held its breath in an eerie silence, creating a haunting atmosphere in the darkened hall. Then from the shadows, Newton looked up at the balcony and froze. There, under the soft glow of the light, stood a figure. It was unmistakably him. Dressed in his classic style, he appeared to be watching Newton with a warm, approving smile, as if he were silently applauding from beyond. Moved and startled, Newton continued his performance, feeling as if he were sharing the stage with his friend one last time. But just as suddenly as the figure had appeared, it vanished, and the theater lights flickered back to normal, as though nothing unusual had happened. When Newton told his bandmates what he'd seen, they admitted they had seen the same mysterious figure. Though the sight left him shaken, Newton also felt a deep sense of comfort, as if his friend had returned, watching over the place that held so many memories. It was a moment of haunting beauty, and it stayed with Newton forever. But that was only the beginning. People in Las Vegas continued to report strange sightings of the king, as if his spirit couldn't quite let go of the city he had loved so much. Some locals claimed to have seen a familiar red Cadillac cruising down the neon-lit streets, his signature ride. They said it would glide down the boulevard, and just as it reached a certain spot near the old entrance to the International Hotel, both the car and driver would disappear without a trace. Tourists, hotel employees, and even police officers reported seeing the red Cadillac over the years, all witnessing the same ghostly vision. Some researchers called it a residual haunting, a scene from the past playing over and over again, frozen in time. In 2022, a documentary crew gained rare access to film in his old penthouse suite at the Westgate Hotel, hoping to capture a glimpse of his life and legacy. However, they ended up with more than they bargained for. As they prepared to enter the penthouse, they found the door mysteriously locked from the inside, an impossibility since there was no lock on the outside. Maintenance had to force the door open, but this was only the beginning of a string of unsettling events. Once inside, the crew's cameras, fully charged moments before, began draining inexplicably fast, with every battery replaced draining within minutes. Undeterred, the team pressed on, but strange occurrences seemed to follow them. Near the private pool area in the suite, one crew member spotted a large, heavy metal chair sitting in the water. The chair was far too heavy to have fallen in by accident. Baffled, they began to wonder if they had stirred up something supernatural in the king's old rooms. Shadows flickered along the walls and cold drafts swept through the rooms, leaving the team with a deep, eerie sense of being watched. This wasn't the only tale of eerie events linked to the king in Las Vegas. Employees at the Westgate have reported hearing faint music coming from the penthouse late at night. Songs like Suspicious Minds or Can't Help Falling in Love would play softly, as if he himself were performing one last encore. Back in Memphis, tales of ghostly encounters kept emerging from Graceland, his beloved mansion. Billy, a friend of the Presley family, once found himself sitting beside Vernon, the king's father, watching television late one night. Out of nowhere, Billy heard steady footsteps coming from the second floor, the part of the house that had been closed off to everyone after his passing. Turning to Vernon, Billy asked if he'd heard the footsteps, but Vernon only shrugged, telling him to focus on the show. But the footsteps continued, each one louder than the last, as if someone were pacing the halls. When he was alive, Billy once asked him about similar eerie sounds he'd heard around the house. He had given him an unusual explanation. He believed it was his mother, Gladys, watching over him. This response both comforted and unnerved Billy, making him feel that Graceland wasn't only a house filled with memories, but perhaps a place where spirits lingered, keeping watch over those they loved. As the years passed, stories from Graceland grew even stranger. A security guard in the late 1980s reported seeing a man dressed in a white jumpsuit walking down the hallway one night. At first, he assumed it was an impersonator who had somehow snuck into the mansion. But as he approached, the figure vanished right before his eyes. The guard, thoroughly spooked, quit his job shortly after, unwilling to stay in a place haunted by such an intense presence. Another chilling tale emerged from a maid who worked at the Westgate Hotel. She was cleaning the penthouse suite when she suddenly heard a familiar humming echo through the empty rooms. The melody was unmistakably Can't Help Falling in Love. As she listened, the humming grew louder, filling the suite, but when she searched the rooms, no one was there. The maid left that day convinced she had experienced his lingering presence, a haunting reminder of the king who once ruled Las Vegas. These tales from Las Vegas and Graceland have woven a mysterious aura around his legacy. Whether these sightings are wishful memories, tricks of the mind, or something beyond explanation, they have captivated generations. Fans, skeptics, and believers alike are drawn to these stories, each one feeling like a new chapter in his unfinished legend. Some say his presence is a reminder that legends never truly fade. Instead, they linger in the places they cherished, watching over the lives they touched, their spirits echoing through the halls of time. Back at Graceland, strange lights and sounds left fans with more questions. The enigmatic light change at Graceland's gates. One mysterious story involved a young boy named Alex who visited Graceland with his family. Alex was only 6 years old and didn't know much about the king. As they walked through the house, taking in the sights, Alex suddenly stopped, looking intently at one of the rooms. His parents noticed but saw nothing unusual, assuming it was just his imagination, and moved on. Later, when they showed Alex a picture of him, he became excited, pointing and saying that this was the man he had seen earlier. The tales keep coming, and they only add to the fascination. Some say it's all just legend, stories created by fans who can't let go. But others, those who have felt the chill, heard the music, or seen the figure, know that there might just be something more. Maybe he is still here, watching over the places he loved, making sure the show goes on. Graceland is no stranger to eerie tales, but some recent happenings suggest that something, or someone, isn't ready to let go. One event that left fans and staff alike questioning reality happened just days before Lisa Marie passed away. The famous blue lights along the driveway, a beacon for all who visit the king's home, mysteriously shifted to a glowing white. It was his birthday week, and Graceland was alive with fans honoring his legacy. Holly and Heather, hosts of the popular The Elvis Legacy show, arrived at the mansion only to feel a chill as they noticed the white lights lining the driveway. Normally, these lights shine a steady, deep blue, casting a familiar glow over the grounds. But that night, the change was undeniable. This strange light phenomenon wasn't the only unsettling occurrence. In 2022, during a tribute to his life, a fan captured a photo outside Graceland that sparked even more questions. The image seemed ordinary at first glance, but a closer look revealed a ghostly white mist hovering near the gates, almost like a figure watching over the visitors. The sight gave fans chills, as though he himself were standing guard, still protecting his home. Then there are the accounts from Graceland's staff. Some claim they've heard his voice softly humming through the mansion late at night, the familiar melodies drifting like whispers through the empty rooms. Donna, a longtime employee, swears she once heard him singing "Love Me Tender" while closing up. When she checked the living room, it was empty, but the feeling that someone had been there remained strong, almost haunting. Inside the mansion, the mysterious stories continued. In the jungle room, one of his favorite places, visitors often report sudden, unexplained drops in temperature. One British couple, visiting Graceland for the first time, claimed they felt a cold brush against them as they stepped into the room. The wife, Anne, felt it so strongly that she thought someone had walked past her, though no one was there. They left the room convinced they'd encountered something or someone they couldn't explain. Perhaps the most spine-tingling tales are those of a shadowy figure seen in the upstairs window of Graceland. This area, off-limits to the public, was his private space. Yet fans outside have reported seeing what looks like a person peering out from the window, as if he himself is still keeping an eye on his home. Some dismiss it as a trick of light and shadow, but for those who've seen it, the figure feels all too real. One night guard's story still echoes through Graceland's halls. James, a security guard working the night shift, reported hearing the sound of his piano playing in the music room. The notes of Blue Moon filled the air, growing louder as he approached. But as he entered, the piano fell silent, and the keys were untouched. Shaken, Earl quit his job the next day, unable to face another night in the eerie silence of Graceland. The paranormal tales extend beyond Memphis. In Las Vegas, where he performed countless iconic shows, stories of his presence are equally unsettling. One performer prepping backstage at an old Vegas venue saw a man in a white jumpsuit watching her from the shadows. Thinking it was an impersonator, she looked again, but he was gone. Staff insisted no one had been there, leaving her to wonder if she'd seen the king himself. The king's spirit seems to be everywhere, refusing to fade. Some say his presence lingers because he left such a powerful mark, an energy that even time itself can't erase. As these tales grow, blending history with legend, they remind us that some stars shine so brightly they never truly leave the stage. Is Elvis truly gone, or does his spirit still walk among us? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing tales.